You make $75,000 a year. Your salary went up 3 times in the past 5 years. You drive a decent car. You live in a nice enough apartment. You can afford groceries without checking your bank account every time. But here's the thing that keeps you up at night. You still have less than $2,000 in your savings account. You got a $5,000 raise last year, and somehow you have no idea where that money went. You're doing everything you're supposed to do, and you still feel like you're one bad month away from everything falling apart. My name is Ely, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people in the United States experience money psychologically. If you're someone who earns a normal income, maybe even more than you used to, but still doesn't feel financially secure, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, because what I'm about to explain will probably make you feel seen in a way that's equal parts relieving and slightly uncomfortable. Here's what most people don't realize. The financial stress you're experiencing isn't actually about how much money you make. According to the American Psychological Association, 72% of Americans report feeling stressed about money at least some of the time, and that number barely changes between people making $50,000 and people making $100,000. Think about that for a second. You would assume that doubling your income would cut your money stress in half. It doesn't, and there's a specific psychological reason why. The average American household earning $70,000 a year spends about $68,000 a year. The average household earning $100,000 spends about $97,000. You see what's happening here? We have this idea that earning more money creates a buffer, creates safety, creates breathing room. But for most people, earning more money just means spending more money, and that buffer never actually appears. Now look, I'm not here to tell you that you're bad with money or that you're buying too many lattes. That advice is condescending and it misses the entire point. What I want to talk about is something way more interesting and way more invisible. It's the hidden psychological costs of living in the United States that nobody mentions, but that quietly drain your income and your mental energy in ways you don't even notice. Let me give you an example. The average monthly car payment in the United States right now is around $716. That's not for a luxury car. That's the average. And here's the thing. Most people don't think of their car payment as a psychological cost. They think of it as a practical necessity. You need a car to get to work. You need a reliable car so you're not stranded. But here's what actually happens in your brain when you sign up for a $700 monthly payment. You don't just lose $700 a month. You lose the mental freedom of knowing you could survive a financial disruption. Because now, every single month, before you even think about rent, before you think about food, you owe $700. And if you miss that payment, your credit score drops, your car gets repossessed, your ability to get to work disappears. So that car payment isn't just a financial cost. It's a psychological cost. It's a constant low-level hum of obligation in the back of your mind that you can't turn off. And the brutal part? That's just one expense. Now at rent. The median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the United States is about $1,400 a month. So now you're at $700 for the car, $1,400 for rent. That's $2,100 before you've eaten a single meal. Now at health insurance. If you're getting insurance through your employer, you're probably paying somewhere between $200 and $500 a month in premiums. Let's say $300. Now you're at $2,400. And that's just the premium. That doesn't include the deductible, which for most Americans is over $1,500. So if something actually happens, if you get sick, if you need surgery, you're paying out of pocket until you hit that deductible. According to the Federal Reserve, 40% of Americans would struggle to cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. 40%. And this isn't just people making minimum wage. This includes people making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. Because the issue isn't income. The issue is that the baseline cost of existing in the United States is so high that it swallows your income before you even get a chance to build any kind of safety net. Here's where it gets interesting. When you're living like this, when your baseline expenses are eating up most of your paycheck, your brain starts operating in a mode that psychologists call scarcity mindset. And scarcity mindset does something really specific to your decision-making. It makes you focus intensely on immediate problems, and it makes you terrible at planning for the future. So let's say you get a raise. You go from $70,000 to $75,000. That's $5,000 more per year. About $400 more per month after taxes. You would think that $400 would go straight into savings. But here's what actually happens. Your brain, which has been operating in scarcity mode, sees that $400 as permission to finally relax a little bit. Maybe you upgrade your apartment. Maybe you buy a nicer car. Maybe you just start going out to eat more often because you're tired of cooking every night and you finally feel like you can afford it. And none of those decisions feel extravagant in the moment. They feel reasonable. They feel like you're finally living the life that someone making $75,000 should be able to live. But the psychological trap is this. You're not upgrading your lifestyle based on what feels good. You're upgrading your lifestyle based on what feels normal compared to other people making $75,000. This is called lifestyle creep, but I think that term makes it sound like a personal failing. It's not. It's a completely predictable psychological response to living in a culture that constantly shows you what normal is supposed to look like at every income level. You scroll through social media and you see people with your job title living in nicer apartments, taking nicer vacations, wearing nicer clothes. And your brain doesn't process that as those people might be in debt. Your brain processes it as this is what life at my income level is supposed to look like, and I'm falling behind. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I'm not trying to keep up with Instagram. I'm just trying to live a normal life. And I believe you. But here's the thing. Normal has been redefined in the United States in a way that makes it almost impossible to feel financially secure even when you're earning a good income. Let me give you a concrete example. In 1980, the average new car cost about $7,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $26,000 in today's money. The average new car today costs about $48,000. So cars have gotten almost twice as expensive in real terms. The same thing happened with housing. In 1980, the median home price was about $64,000, or about $240,000 in today's money. The median home price today is over $400,000. So the two biggest expenses in most people's lives have dramatically outpaced wage growth. And here's the psychological cost that nobody talks about. When you're spending this much on baseline expenses, you lose the ability to take risks. You can't quit a job you hate because you need the health insurance. You can't move to a different city for a better opportunity because you can't afford the cost of moving. You can't start a business or go back to school because you're locked into these monthly payments that don't stop. So you stay. You stay in the job that's slowly draining you. You stay in the city that you're not sure you even like anymore. You stay in the relationship that's not quite right because combining incomes is the only way you can afford rent. And every year that goes by, the idea of making a big change feels more impossible because you've accumulated more obligations. This is what I mean when I talk about hidden costs. The actual dollar amount you're spending is only part of the equation. The bigger cost is the life you're not living because you can't afford the risk of change. And that cost doesn't show up on a budget spreadsheet. It shows up as a vague sense of being trapped. It shows up as Sunday night anxiety. Now look, I don't want this to sound hopeless because it's not. But I think we need to be really honest about what the problem actually is before we can talk about solutions. And the problem is not that you're bad at budgeting. The problem is that the financial system in the United States is designed in a way that makes it incredibly difficult to build stability unless you're earning well above the median income. Here's what I mean. Let's say you want to build a 6-month emergency fund. That's the standard advice, right? For someone spending $4,000 a month, that's $24,000. If you're making $75,000 a year, that's about $57,000 after taxes, which means you're living on about $4,700 a month. To save $24,000, you would need to save about $400 a month for 5 years. And that's assuming nothing goes wrong during those 5 years. Most people can't do that. Not because they're irresponsible, but because the margin between income and expenses is so thin that any disruption wipes out months of progress. You save $1,500, and then your car needs new brakes, and you're back to zero. It's not that you're not trying. It's that you're playing a game where the baseline difficulty level is set so high that most people can't win. So what do you actually do about this? Here's the thing. I can't give you advice that magically makes rent cheaper or makes healthcare affordable. Those are structural problems. But what I can tell you is that understanding the psychology of why you feel the way you feel about money is actually the first step toward making better decisions. Because once you realize that the stress you're feeling isn't a personal failure, once you realize that earning more money won't automatically make you feel more secure, you can start making decisions based on what actually creates stability instead of what feels normal. Here's what that looks like practically. First, you have to get ruthlessly honest about your baseline expenses. Not what you wish they were, what they actually are. Write down every single fixed expense you have: rent, car payment, insurance, phone bill, subscriptions, debt payments, everything. Add it up. That number is your financial floor. Once you know that number, you can start asking better questions. Can I lower this floor? Can I move somewhere cheaper? Can I get rid of the car payment? And look, I know those questions sound annoying, but here's the reality. Every dollar you can shave off your baseline expenses is a dollar that buys you freedom. It's a dollar that reduces the psychological weight of obligation. Second, you have to completely rewire how you think about raises and windfalls. The next time you get a raise, the next time you get a tax refund, you have to treat that money like it doesn't exist. It goes straight into savings before your brain has a chance to recategorize it as spendable income. Third, you have to build a psychological buffer, not just a financial one. What I mean by that is this. It's not enough to have money in a savings account. You also need to have a sense of control over your financial life. And control comes from having options. So even if you can't save 6 months of expenses right now, can you save 1 month? Can you save 2 weeks? That buffer, even if it's small, changes how you feel every single day. It changes how you sleep. It changes how you show up at work. Because you're not operating from a place of constant low-level panic anymore. And fourth, you have to stop comparing yourself to people who are playing a completely different game. The person with the nice apartment and the new car might have family money. They might be drowning in debt. You have no idea. And spending energy trying to keep up with them is just stealing energy you could be using to build your own stability. Here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Financial security in the United States is harder than it's ever been for people earning normal incomes. The costs are higher, the safety nets are weaker, and the cultural pressure to look successful is more intense than ever. You're not imagining it. You're not failing. The game is just rigged in a way that makes it incredibly difficult to win unless you're aware of the rules. But once you understand the psychology of how this system is designed to keep you spending, keep you obligated, keep you stuck, you can start making decisions that actually move you toward stability instead of just toward the appearance of success. And that shift, that mental shift from optimizing for what looks normal to optimizing for what feels secure, that's the shift that actually changes your life. You're not going to fix this overnight. But you can start today by being honest about where you actually are, by lowering your baseline costs wherever possible, by treating raises like they don't exist, and by building even a tiny buffer that gives you breathing room. Because here's what I've learned. Financial security isn't about having a huge income. It's about having a gap between what you earn and what you need. And in the United States right now, creating that gap requires you to actively resist the pressure to live like everyone else at your income level. It requires you to be okay with looking less successful on the outside so you can feel more secure on the inside. And that's hard. That's really hard. But it's also the only path I've seen that actually works. So if this video resonated with you, if you're someone who makes decent money but still feels like you're barely holding it together, leave a comment and let me know. Hit subscribe if you want more content about money and how we actually experience it in real life. And I'll see you in the next one.